can't hear you.
You say hi?
Yeah, I know.
All right, babe.
We all just waved to you, Asher.
You go watch the movie, and I'll be done in a few minutes.
No.
And I'll tuck you in.
Hi.
He's saying, I can be quiet.
I can be quiet. Yeah, just mute. I mean, if he wants to stick around, just mute it when he's around. That's fine.
Okay, I'll kick him out eventually.
Okay.
Cal, we should put Asher on the podcast. It wouldn't be any less intelligible than about 30% of that gun control conversation that was on your
Very
Facebook.
wise.
Well,
That's a good
I
insight.
was going to say, the one we just had, I thought it was really intelligent. Okay.
No. The thing on your Facebook wall.
Now, the funny thing is, Justin listens to all of our podcasts, so he's not on the podcast, and I think his commentary to me offline is his kind of way of saying, I wish I was on the podcast. But he's always like, here's why such and such is wrong about what he said.
Since I wasn't on the
This way.
podcast.
And he gives me a piece of his mind on every episode. It's hilarious.
Well, I'm glad somebody listens to it.
Yeah, me too.
What was the one conversation? I'm trying to. I remember the conversation. I'm trying to remember the word. Let me think. I forget. There was one debate we were having. It was on the issue of global warming.
Oh.
And
yeah, where I was asking the question because I wanted to research it.
Right, and so in 3 different posts, I think over 3 different posts of his, Justin used this word like 5 times, and it's like, dude, we get it. You know what it means. And I forget what the word was, but it was great.
Yeah, he's a smart guy, and he needs people to know it. I think I'm past the stage of needing people to know I'm smart. I'm freaking smart, and you can just deal with it.
Okay.
So who did hats off last time? That was Kent and
Me and Jen.
Okay, so Kara, you have a hats off. Oh, Kara's taking Asher away. I'll wait for her to come back. So Kent,
We can wait.
we need to hang out more
Yeah.
often.
Yes.
We need to hang out more often.
Da, da, da,
We're
da,
not
da.
going to be able to hang out with Kara.
No.
I could handle Texas in the middle of February.
Yeah, we should all
Just
fly. We should all
saying.
fly to Texas for a special weekend.
That is what we should do. We should go to Houston in January, because Houston, I guess they have
would be
smog, right? Yeah, well, not in January.
Yeah, but I mean,
It'd be hotter than
even
here.
if it was cold there, it's gonna be warm compared to
I'd
what
be
we're
in
used
shorts
to.
and sandals. It'd be
Yes.
like 56 degrees in spring here.
Yep. Well, I went to the gym this afternoon in the clothes I work out in the gym, which is like basketball shorts and a short sleeve shirt, and it's October 11th. So.
Yeah, but that's not really anything, let's be honest, until it's December or January.
Yeah, I know, but still.
I saw a video the other day it said in Michigan 56 degrees in the spring, and the guy had his windows down and he was singing at the top of his lungs at 56 degrees in October. It's like, oh my God, it's so cold in here. So
it is a completely different, totally different psychological.
Reality. Okay, so Kent, your hats. Oh, I'm sorry, Kara, your hats off.
All right. Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear my son crying right now?
No.
Not as long as you're talking.
Okay, good. So I mean, good. We'll just ignore it.
Good mom.
My husband's home. He can deal with it.
All right.
Okay. So this is a really cool story. As I was reading up on my new home city of Houston, Texas, I came across the story of a Texas businessman who is also a pilot. He was flying from Houston, and it was actually a small, like, 2-passenger plane, 9,300 feet, and apparently some kind of cabin pressure kind of caused one of the doors to, like, crack open slightly, and his iPhone fell out from 9,300 feet. He used the Find My Phone app and found it, and he found it in a field in Houston, and it was still working. It still works. So
Was
Hats off to Apple.
Was the screen cracked? That's a heck of a drop test.
Yeah, no, it was all good.
I want to know what kind of case he has on it, and honey, we need to go buy it.
Yeah, right? Yeah, it doesn't say what kind of case is on it.
You must have a 21 case.
Must have.
They found the gadget under a mesquite tree, because it is Texas after all.
You know what? That is one great advertisement for whatever case he had and for the iPhone. Like, they should just do some promo right now.
They absolutely should.
Yeah, the picture, it doesn't look like anything special. It just looks like a regular.
You know, here's where I thought that story was going when you said Texas businessman flying his plane 9,300 feet. Engine goes out, he crawls out onto the windshield or onto the wing and fixes it because, of course, he does.
Actually,
from Texas.
Actually, I thought the phone was gonna fall and hurt somebody, like on the ground. That's where I thought it was going.
Man, you guys really had some.
Immediately
Immediately
after that story was released, Samsung released a statement that a plane at 9,301 feet dropped one of their phones.
A pilot or a planet?
A pilot.
Oh, I thought you said.
I would just like to note that I dropped my phone as I was opening the door to my house and my screen cracked. So I don't know how that happened.
Sometimes but at least you knew where your phone was.
That's true. Yeah, I didn't have to use the Find My Phone app.
There it is, broken.
So I know right where it is. I will cut my fingers as I slide it up.
Is this wrong? But anytime I see a phone or like an iPad or whatever with a cracked screen, like it literally, I feel like it hurts my heart. Like I'm like, oh.
Speaking of Apple, since we're talking about Apple, I heard that you got a really cool thing, Jen. What are you showing to people that can't see? Because this is
radio.
A radio.
I got a new Apple Watch.
What?
Yeah.
What handsome guy
Who gave that to you?
You know what? I got it from the most amazing man I know.
What? Kent? How? What? Why did you get that? That's crazy.
I got it from this amazing man, and I just feel so grateful and so loved. I just don't even know what to say.
Go on. I'm sure you can say more.
Oh, and he's handsome, and he's intelligent, and he's my world.
All right,
outside of God. Outside of God, of course.
Outside of God.
Yeah.
I don't know who she's talking about, but
Kent left the group. You guys,
he's a great guy. I mean, I'm really lucky.
Yeah, I saw Kent just left.
He was like, I'm out of here. This is what we're doing.
I'm really lucky. I mean, you know, Kent was like, uh-oh.
I'm out of here.
Jealousy isn't a good emotion in anyone, Kent.
I'm very, very thankful. That's what I can say. Mostly for him, but also for my watch.
Okay.
For Calvin and my watch.
And my watch. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of my niece when I first moved out on my own. I was living at my mom and dad's house when I was living at my mom and dad's house when I first got out of college. Hold on one sec. Kent just texted. Uh-oh. Kent's trying to get the internet back, so we might have to pause here for a second.
Okay.
But either way, I can tell this story. So that reminds me of a story. Take 3. So that reminds me of a story when I was in just out of college. When I was my final year of college, I lived at home, and immediately after college, I was still at home, and then I moved out on my own. And my niece was so used to me living in this house because my niece lived there as well, and so basically anytime she wanted, she would come to me and say, "Hey, Uncle Calvin, can I borrow your iPad?" And she would. And so then I moved out, and she would always ask to come over and stay. And she'd say, "I miss you. I miss you, Uncle Calvin." And I'd say, "You don't miss me. You miss the iPad." And she's like,
"Come on, you kid."
And she'd be like, "No, I miss you." iPad.
Great.
So I ended up.
Maybe I would take you over this watch any day.
I ended up getting her own iPad.
Aww.
That's a good uncle.
She just smashed it.
You just wanted to know when she really missed you.
Yeah.
That's what it came down to.
Anyhow, still waiting for Kent. We'll pause. Pause here for a minute.
Well.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm gonna mute until he comes back.
So, how's it going?
Ken's back.
Hey.
Hey.
Hello.
Hey, Kent. Welcome back.
I don't know what happened.
Okay,
Okay.
fine.
Well, all right. So,
Technical
yay,
delays.
Texas.
We didn't go into my hats off yet, so
Okay.
we're gonna do my hats off now. So my hats off this week. Interestingly enough, it's not a funny one. It's just kind of one that intrigued me and was kind of moving. As some of you who listen know, and as all of you who are on the podcast know, I work for a touring company in downtown Detroit. Although I'd like to announce that I am starting my own.
Yay!
Yay!
So, however, I took my alma mater out on a tour. Our alumni association from Rochester College contacted me at my now kind of former place of business and asked me to do a tour for them. And so yesterday was the day that we did that tour. And when we were all done with the tour of downtown Detroit, we stopped off at American Coney Island for lunch.
Lafayette is better.
Yeah, that's what everybody says.
Okay.
I am a diplomat. I say that the hot dog is better at American and the chili is better at Lafayette by far. So
I can't tell the difference to save my life. So wherever you want to go,
one is all beef. One is all beef, and the other one is not.
Really?
I like the casing. I like the casing on the hot dog at American better than I do at Lafayette. But that's neither here nor there. But you are in the majority. Most people believe that Lafayette is better. But American takes cash and a credit card, so Lafayette only takes cash.
Really?
Yes. It's something you should know. So
Rabbit trail.
Yeah, rabbit trail. Whoop, squirrel. Either way, so afterwards we're eating lunch, and there's a guy whose name is Larry Stewart. He's kind of everybody at Rochester College. If you've been there pretty much since the 1960s, we all know Larry Stewart. He's been around the school since then. He is now kind of officially the school historian. He actually wrote a book about Rochester College's 50-plus year history at this point. And just a really, really nice guy, and he's the one who set up the tour. And on this tour were a lot of people from the front office. They're really interested in doing more tours in the future, which is really cool. But his father was on the tour. And so we're sitting down, and his father's 90 years old, and his name is Ken. So Ken Stewart. We're sitting down, and he tells me that he was a World War II veteran, and they recently he was part of a group, I believe, called the Talon Group or something like that. You can see this online right now. But a bunch of World War II veterans went on a tour of Washington, D.C. They were flown to Washington, D.C., and they were paraded around with police escort to all of the monuments and just kind of honored, right? Because these were men who are arguably from the greatest generation this country has ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
But
speaking of defending those men.
Yeah, speaking of defending the nation and whatnot.
At our previous, Yeah.
But he leaned over to me. So bear in mind, he's 90 years old. And he leans over to me, and he says to me, well, I guess I should give you some context for this. I let them know that I majored in history, and my area of expertise is the African American experience in the early American Republic, and I can talk about anything about the African American experience from the inception of the nation all the way up to and including the Civil War, the end of slavery, and which was in 1865, by the way. So he leans over to me and he says, I want you to know that when I was a boy, I met a man, a black man, who was born a slave. And he said this happened when he was 11 years old. Okay, so he's 90 years old. At 11 years old, it would have been 1936. He would have been 11, which meant if the man was born into slavery at the very latest, he met, when he was 11 years old, he met a 71-year-old black man who had been born into slavery. And I was just fascinated because, one, we don't have that many people left who fought in World War II. That generation is just dying off, from age, if they didn't die in the war already, right? And so you've got more and more of that generation that we're losing by the day. And he was not that far removed from meeting someone. I'm now one person removed from slavery. And just as a historian, someone who is passionate about the African American experience here in the United States up to this day, and all the things that we see, and people often say things like, hey, you know what? That was so long ago. I met a guy yesterday who met a slave. So it wasn't that long ago. It was yesterday, historically speaking. So my hat's off to Ken Stewart, who fought as part of the greatest generation that this nation has ever seen, and also hats off to connecting me to my roots, connecting me to a history that still matters. So that's my hats off this week. Nothing funny, just really, really a very interesting happenstance. Never had that.
That's very cool.
So
Indeed.
Cool.
Now I feel slightly guilty for all the frivolous stuff that we do. Because that was great.
We can throw some stuff in there. So that was cool. Let's see. We're this week we're going to be talking about an article that Jen had connected us to called 9 Sins Christians Are Okay With. It's an article from a website called Faith It. I don't know really much about that site. It might have a lot of different Christian. I think it's a Christian website, or it might be one of those things where
it says something about the author at the bottom if you want to just scroll all the way down.
But the website might have to do with multiple different types of faiths, and this might be from the Christian section. Frank Powell is a devoted follower of Christ, college young adult minister, husband to Tiffany Powell, dad to Noah and Micah, avid blogger, writer, sports fan. You can follow him on Twitter and read more of his blogs. But either way, he wrote an article on this website, and Jen connected us to it, called 9 Sins Christians Are Okay With. And I thought it would be an interesting conversation because there's always the sins that we hear about, the ones that Christians are always railing about from the pulpit or railing about in the political arena. And often people will bring up, well, here are all these other sins that Christians don't talk about, or Christians avoid speaking about, which I don't necessarily think is true. But I wanted to kind of engage this because I don't want to completely scoff at the idea that there are sins that we avoid. So the sins that
Christians... this isn't even avoid. This is that we're okay with. We've accepted
things that we're actually okay with. So I'll just read them off real quick. And none of this is going to be in the podcast, just kind of to give perspective. I think we've all read the article, right? Did you read it, Kent? Okay,
yes.
Right. Fear, apathy, gluttony, worry, flattery, comfort, consumerism, patriotism, and lying.
I think you missed number 2, hon.
Huh? Did I miss number 2? Fear, apathy.
Apathy.
I said apathy.
Yeah, I said apathy.
Gluttony,
okay.
Worry, flattery, comfort, consumerism, patriotism, and lying. Okay, and so we don't have to go into every single one of them by any means. But in this article, are there any of the sins, these 9 sins that the author says that Christians are okay with, that you guys, when you were reading it, were like, yep, my church is totally okay with that thing that the Bible specifically calls a sin? Was there anything in this article that you were like, yeah?
Well, I don't know if you'd find any churches that, die on that hill saying, yes, this thing the Bible specifically says is a sin is fine. But there are definitely things that we emphasize more than others and things that we sweep under the rug. That said, as I went over this list, I take issue with a couple of his definitions.
What are those?
Well, thanks for asking, Kara.
Sorry.
That was Jen, by the way. All women must sound alike to Kent.
They all look alike. They all sound alike.
Which sin is
No,
he committing?
no problem, Calvin.
All right. Well, as I go down the list, I don't know if you want to, go over these one by one, or
No, we definitely don't want to go over them one by one.
No, but it's like
people are being linked to the article.
Okay. All right. So number one on this list, fear. And it starts out, the phrases "do not fear" and "do not be afraid" appear 365 times in the Bible. And, I mean, to be fair, I think the kind of fear and later in the list you see worry. And I think the kind of fear that he's talking about here is a very close overlay with worry, because fear is an autonomic nervous system response that is in no way a sin to feel if something happens in your surroundings to make you feel threatened. I mean, that just is what it is. And so when he says the opposite of fear is love, when I am at the cider mill on an early October, late September day and am surrounded by bees, I feel fear. The opposite of that fear is not love. That is a different thing. So maybe that's a problem with our definitions.
Yeah, he might be mixing definitions there then.
Yeah,
okay.
Sorry, I thought you were done.
No, go.
I had the same kind of feeling. There's actually most of them on the list. I was like, are those sins? I don't know. Because I guess the way I've always heard a sin described is missing the mark, not being like God. And so if that's what we're talking about, then sure, I get that fear is not something that the Lord has, I guess. But, we are also told to fear God. And there are things in life that we don't understand, and I think fear, like you said, is a really normal reaction. I can say, as somebody who has struggled with a panic disorder, that there's a chemical component in me, that I have an overreaction of fear in a situation that doesn't really merit it. And that was one of the big things I had to overcome in counseling, is feeling guilty about that. And so I've been told that by lots of people who struggle with anxiety, that they struggle with feeling guilty that they are anxious, because perfect love is supposed to drive out fear. We're not supposed to be afraid of anything, and that is absolutely the case. But there's a physiological reaction in us too, and it's not something to be ashamed of. And I certainly would hate people to feel like they're sinning because they have a moment of fear. I think the sin would come in giving into that fear, as opposed to trusting God despite your fears.
Kara, I just want to say I'm really glad that you told us that you had been in counseling for a panic condition, because a couple of weeks ago was Kara's birthday, and I had this box and a live huntsman spider that I was going to mail to Kara as a surprise, and I decided, no, let's not do that. And now I'm seeing that was the right choice.
Thank you. Yes, you may have saved my life. Thank you.
Okay.
Now, here's the interesting thing, though. On the whole fear thing, again, I think he mixes definitions, but he does say something that I think is poignant. He says the church is scared to make decisions out of fear, and I've seen that happen. Christians are hesitant to step into dangerous situations out of fear. The catalyst for obedience is fear. Where's the love? And one of the big things I've seen, not necessarily Christians, but more pastors to be fearful about, is to talk about particular topics. because they don't want to upset the status quo. If I say this thing, I could lose some members. For instance, I went to a church called Grace Community Church a long time ago, and the pastor's name was Kevin Butcher. He's now at a different church, but he got there when Grosse Pointe was pretty racially segregated. I remember moving into Grosse Pointe and being the second African-American family ever to move into Grosse Pointe Woods, and that was in 1994. But prior to that, he had already been pastor of the church, and he said something to the effect of, and I wasn't there for this, so I'm just, he relayed this to me some years later, where he said, when he got there, he said to the congregation, if my daughter met a black guy who loved God and loved other people and loved my daughter well and treated her well and was a moral person, I would definitely want her to marry that guy over a white guy who doesn't love God, who's not pursuing the good of other people in this world, and who's really crappy to my daughter. And they lost 300 members over that.
Wow.
And he said that was the best 300 people we ever lost. he didn't care, right? But a lot of pastors are afraid to say things that could lose membership because of the bottom line. We're going to lose tithers.
I agree. I think that that's the context.
Yeah, and so you've got this fear that I think a lot of Christians, in my example, pastors specifically, are afraid to speak into certain issues. A lot of pastors are afraid to give the money talk.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, because it's going to be that Sunday, and then a visitor's going to be there, and they're going to come and say, "Oh, see, I told you the church is all about money." No, you came on that one Sunday where we're talking about money, or this series where we're talking about money, and you heard what you wanted to hear because this is what you thought the church was about anyway. And so a lot of pastors shy away from even preaching about money because it could you could lose members.
And then there's the pastors who use fear.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you're going to burn in hell, or you better obey. And that's the wrong motivation too.
Yeah.
Not that those aren't maybe truths, but fear shouldn't be the motivation. Maybe it should be posed, I guess, a different way. That, hey, this is true, but because God loves you.
Yeah.
That should be the motivation. And I think that we also do that because we're mixing terms. And maybe that's what the difference is. I think maybe we misunderstand because our language doesn't separate when the Bible talks about the fear of God versus the fear that we have of things and different, emotions that we come across. And I think that there's a very big difference in I think the fear of God is like a reverence. I obey God not because I'm scared of him, which is often what we think of as fear, but rather because I'm in awe of him and I have a reverence of him, and because I honor him and I reverence him and I want to worship him, I also want to honor him, worship him, and obey him, because I know why? Because I know he loves me and he has my best interest in heart. And because of that, I also want to honor him and love him and have his best interest too. So I think that there's a misunderstanding in society and in the church as well.
I think another one that kind of stuck out to me, and I was like, yep, he's right, was gluttony. Let's be honest. The church isn't about to stop the potluck.
The potluck.
We're not about to stop the potluck. And I think that's the easy go-to for most of us. You're like, what about the potluck? You're not about to take the extra piece of pie away from Sister So-and-so because she put on a few extra pounds, and, maybe you should stop, glutting your face with blueberry pie, and maybe you should hit the treadmill every now and again. And of course, that's a very, very personal thing to say to someone. But we live in a country and a culture that engorges itself. I've heard the statistic, and I don't know that I haven't substantiated it, but the United States grows a third of the world's food, but consumes 3/4 of it, and we throw away a quarter of that. And so we're very wasteful people. We eat a lot of stuff. We eat a ton of stuff, and I have never once heard a sermon about how to eat healthy, how to eat less, and I would actually kind of be accepting of that kind of sermon series. Like Jen had me, Jen's been talking about exercising and dieting, and so I'm 155 pounds wet, and I run and I bike and I do all these things, and my argument was, I can eat whatever I want because I run it off, I burn it off. And she's like, no, you need to know that some of the things that you're taking into your body aren't that great, even though you're doing all this stuff and it doesn't show.
You put diesel into a car that needs unleaded, you're going to have a problem.
Right. And so she had me watching these documentaries, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm taking a lot of stuff in my body that I probably shouldn't, which has changed my eating habits in some ways, not all.
Sure, moderation.
Because in some ways I'm a glutton. But it does seem that I think he's spot on that one, in that I don't think the church is saying, like you said, Kent, in the first one, the church isn't saying, hey, overeat, everybody. Eat all the stuff that's bad for you. But the church is not offering ways where we can care for our bodies. If the body is the temple of God,
right,
as it says in 1 Corinthians 6, then
there are some that are trying to do like health groups and exercise groups, but it's not the.
But those
the
are
majority.
affinity groups within the church. I don't see the church saying preaching and leading the church from the pulpit on healthy living.
Right.
I don't see that happening. What about you guys?
We've talked about Patrick Mead on here before, but a few years back, he's a pretty well-known Church of Christ minister. But a few years back, he posted on Facebook how these 4 elders had come up to him after a sermon because they were really upset about his. I guess he wasn't being strict enough about certain sins or condemning certain sins. And all 4 of these men were obese, and so he's like, okay, let's start with gluttony. And they were like, okay. They just walked away from that, which I thought was pretty good.
And dropped the mic. And just
let's start with gluttony.
Nice conversation, boys. See you later.
That's almost like a Jesus, drawing in the sand and saying, without sin, cast the first stone.
Absolutely. You know what? Let me jump in here and say one of the ones, and I know we kind of went there in a different way on the fear. But he also separates it, and whether or not he should is debatable. But on number 4, he talks about worry, and there's a quote in here that he gives that got to me, and I thought, ooh, hit a nerve. And it says, he recently asked a good friend why worry plagues the church. He said something profound, and this was his friend's response. He said, my greatest concern is that we don't want God. I'm sorry, that we don't want to need God. We are Americans and we're independent. And I know in our studies we've talked about, when we were studying, or when I was studying theology and biblical studies, whatever, there's definitely a unique set of circumstances and issues, I guess, that come along with the American church that you don't see in some other countries, where we don't have this individualistic society and we have a more, holistic society where the community and everything is also what's, our number one or important thing, whereas in America we're all about us. But that, along with number 6, which is comfort, I thought that was really really interesting, because I've been a part of many circles and discussions or churches, etc., where there is a lot of resistance to change, even when it's good change and needed change, and even when probably the majority could say, well, yeah, that's good. It's, well, this is how we've always done things, and that, if we're not careful, can be very pharisaical, and what the Pharisees did back in Jesus' day. So I personally thought, wow, that's something to think about.
I've never really been someone to worry, interestingly enough. And I was recently working with some people who are very much worriers. And I think that they would get upset that I was not worried as much as they were. And
so what, did you have apathy?
No, I didn't have apathy. I just
kidding.
Didn't worry about certain things because I knew that certain things were going to work out. And sometimes they were right to worry and I was wrong. But more often than not, I tend to be a person who's pretty even keel, and I don't let too many things bother me. Not that certain things don't. Some things do keep me up at night, but it's not generally I'm worried about something. For instance, 4 weeks ago now, my car was stolen. I walked out to the front of my building, and I walked out to the garage where I parked the car, and it wasn't there, and I thought, well, it's been a couple days since I drove it because I sometimes ride my bike to work, and so I was like, well, maybe I parked it outside, and so I'm not worried. I just walk outside, car's not there, and I'm like, okay, my car was stolen. I felt a little violated, but I didn't worry because I had insurance. My car is covered, and so.
And then we found until maybe insurance.
Yeah,
and then that turned out fine.
Yeah. It was still. It was a nightmare situation dealing with our insurance company, but I never thought that I wouldn't get another car. I didn't worry that I'd be completely destitute. I was inconvenienced for a few weeks for sure. It was annoying, but by and large, that's a pretty big thing. Having your car stolen is a big thing, right? So no one can say, well, that's a small thing. Obviously, it's small in comparison to your child has cancer or something. You're worried that the child might die. Mm-hmm. But by and large, and that's not my situation. But by and large, I'm just not given to worry very much. I know that some people are. Like I said, I work with some people who are very, very much worriers.
But haven't you said that your mom she worries some?
Yeah, and mom worries about the children. And I think in
what
some
mother
ways,
doesn't?
I think there should be a differentiation between concern and worry. Like if my daughter, she's 13 now, if she grows up and she turns 16 or 17, 18, whatever, starts dating, so maybe 30, because I'm whatever situation where she's dating, I'm dead in this scenario already. So if my daughter comes home and she brings a guy who's tattooed head to toe and doesn't love Jesus and he's doing drugs and he's unemployed, I might have some concerns.
Sure.
I might have some concerns, and I will do some things within my power to dissuade her from dating this person. I would do some things within my power to dissuade him from talking to my daughter. I would do those things, right?
I would say that's different than worry.
I think those are valid concerns, right? But I'm not worried that this guy is somehow pulling my daughter out of the hands of God. I am not worried that God is not still sovereign and protecting her. I am not worried that she's going to lose her place in his kingdom. I'm not worried that she's not going to go to college. I'm not worried that she's going to ruin her whole life. I have some concerns that those could be possibilities as long as this is the thing. But my whole life is not run by that worry, if that makes sense.
I think that's great, but not everybody, I think, is there. I think that there's many people who maybe haven't given that to God and gone back to the scripture of train up a child in the way they shall go, and when they are old, they will not depart from it. Training them how you know best, and then trusting God to take care of them.
Right. I was just using me as an example.
I know.
I want to know what the others think about. This worry is kind of a big one. So
it is, and I think
your thoughts on that.
I think worry
touched on it a little bit.
Worry, like fear, is one of those that I wouldn't call it in itself a sin, but dwelling on it, I think all of us worry at some point. If you're up for a big job promotion or something, you worry, did I say the right things in the interview? Or if you're, if you really like somebody, you're wondering if you make a fool of yourself and worrying about how you came off. I think the key to that is when you have those worries, you capture them, and cast them on to Jesus, cast your burdens. That's, the difference between a sin and not a sin is when you just hold the worries and be controlling with them and say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to take care of it. And that's just a vicious circle.
I think that's an excellent point.
I think what the author is saying is that apathy is a sin and worry is a sin. So there is a magic sweet spot, right, where you care, but not too much.
Yeah.
That's right.
Good point.
I also want
worry follows apathy.
Yeah.
Well, and honestly, where's the discussion of prayer into this or study? You know what I mean? If you have a worry and you bring it to God, that's very different than worrying and letting it eat away at you. I guess apathy would be the I'm going to do what I want idea or extreme of the other, that. But where's the biblical principle of it's not a sin what comes into your mind, but it's how you handle it. Just like it's not about how you aren't responsible for how somebody else treats you, but it's how you react, right? Be angry and sin not. That kind of thing.
Okay, confession time.
Uh-oh.
I spent a lot of money this past weekend.
Okay.
Now, in my defense...
It's my watch.
In my defense, I'm trying to make Jen very happy for her birthday that's coming up. Super excited about that.
I told you you didn't need to do that, though.
I talked to her mom the other day, and I said, I just can't stop buying stuff for her, which is kind of fun. So it's always nice for me to shop for other people. But I also did a fair amount of shopping for myself as well.
You did.
I'm wearing a new sweater as we're talking.
New jeans and new shoes, I believe.
Shoes. Bought some other clothes. Got some comic books. Got some. Got her.
I just feel so bad even hearing the list. Like I'm like, what's the bank account at?
So we spent. I spent a lot of money, and then after
He's making me nervous, guys.
We went to Costco tonight, or Sam's Club.
Oh, I'm not supposed to worry though.
And bought some stuff as well. And so one of the things on his list is consumerism, and I will just tell you, I am absolutely guilty of being a consumer, and it's
I read that and giggled today too.
Yeah, and it's of things that it's generally of things I don't need. It's generally things I want. And Dave Ramsey would be very upset with me if you know the Dave Ramsey Total Mini Makeover. Did I need another sweater? No. Fashion-wise, yes, I needed another one because my turtleneck is now out of style, so I had to get one that was in style for this.
I agree. That's just embarrassing.
Right. You have any idea how long this neck is? Turtleneck just is not a good thing on me. I'm guilty of it, whether it's just going out and shopping for myself, or having to eat dinner at Thanksgiving at 2:00 in the afternoon because doorbuster sales on Black Friday start at 6 p.m. on Thanksgiving now. I want the bigger, badder, newer, flashier thing, and I'm really having to teach myself to not desire the thing. Like they just announced the Apple iPhone 6S, and it does some really cool stuff, and I want it, but I'm having to convince myself, I don't really need it. I actually met a woman who has a BlackBerry yesterday.
Oh.
15 years old, and she's like, it works. Why do I want to replace it?
Well, yeah, so do cans and a string. I mean, there's a minimum level of acceptability.
Hey, she's like, hey, you know what? I've dropped this thing 1,000,000 times. It's never broken. I've drowned it in water, put it in a bag of rice. It works fine 15 years later. Whereas, the iPhone, Kara just dropped hers and cracked the screen, so.
My mom had a Palm Pilot, same kind of thing, forever. Like, by the time they, switched it over, they're like, ma'am, we don't even have, a machine or software to switch your contacts. It was so outdated.
Christians are consumers, just like everyone else. We're convinced that we're convinced that our wants are needs. And the church...
Look at the Christian bookstore.
I think the church...
What's the new trend?
I don't know.
I'm just saying that's what happens. Every church is, this is the thing that's in now,
Okay.
I don't know. What is it, selfie sticks? What is the new trend?
No, the story. Not that it's a bad thing, right? But it was a big thing. If you haven't noticed, a lot of churches, whenever any kind of new, I guess material like that comes out, another way to present it's a trend.
Like
even
the War Room movie.
Yeah, it's a trend. Exactly. That's the current trend right now.
Right.
Where is your war room? And you know what? It's not a bad message. It's not a bad thing to revitalize people and remind them.
I think we need to bring back the Prayer of Jabez plates set. And
the irony to the Prayer of Jabez craze is that that author prayed that prayer and God expanded his territory. So
there you go.
Because of all the kitsch that was sold.
But the thing is that's not all bad. I think there's some good to it, but it's when it gets to that extreme. That's the thing.
Yeah. So I mean,
not being content with what you have.
I don't think the church ever gets up and says, buy these things. You need to go out and buy this thing right now.
I don't know. I feel like there's some ministers on TV that might do that.
Yeah, maybe. So there are some of those. But most of us collectively agree that those guys are charlatans.
Sure.
I think Creflo Dollar the other day said that Jesus died so that you didn't have to be poor. And everybody went off on no, Jesus died so that you didn't have to go to hell. That was pretty much what he died for. He died for your salvation.
You're still going to hell, but you have some money.
Yeah, at least you got a Bentley. So
what is it about the rich man getting into heaven?
Yeah. So the thing about it is, while I don't think the church, I think the church does so many things to help others, like help the poor, help the needy. We have a homeless shelter. My church does homeless barbecues and things like that. That when we do those things, we don't feel as guilty about running out and buying the flat screen TV and trampling someone to get it at Best Buy on Black Friday.
Isn't that the truth? But what about flattery? I mean, flattery's a big one on there too.
I'm glad we're doubling back to flattery, because I was afraid that we'd skipped it and lost the moment. But number 5 on this list is Slattery, cast member in Mad Men. Number 5 on this list is flattery, and he starts off by saying, "I erased this like 5 times, but God kept telling me to put it back, so I did with hesitancy. I love you, God."
It's almost like he's checking himself,
very,
like,
which is very sweet. But if God tells him to put it back, if you're getting messages from God, you need to hold out for a clearer signal, because he then goes on to write 200 and something words about vanity, not flattery. It's a different, because he's talking about putting pieces of yourself out into social media and like fishing for compliments and looking for the best photo. Flattery is not what you can receive flattery, but it's not a sin to receive flattery.
No, you're right. It's the action that's trying to get it.
As opposed to flattering, because I read the title and I thought flattery, and I was saying, is he saying that giving people compliments in order to get them to help you is a sin? And I'm going to go out on the limb and say no. That's what makes the world go round.
I don't know.
Getting people to help you.
Proverbs talked about flattery and it being a sin.
Wait,
so in that sense, he's right, but he is talking about vanity here and not flattery.
Kent,
yes.
I've just come to the conclusion that next time he decides to write anything, article that's going to be published out there, he needs to contact you and encourage you to be his editor.
Here's
Actually,
the thing,
I think
Jen.
your terms are mixed here, or you're mixing definitions, you're splicing, whatever. He needs to call you.
Here's the thing, Jen. That's absolutely true. And it's true about a lot of people that I read, and sometimes I will.
They can't all be you. I'm just saying.
Sometimes I will send them passive-aggressive messages saying, "I will edit your work for free. Just send it to me so you don't embarrass yourself." Okay, moving on.
Kent, that's so noble and thoughtful of you. I mean, I don't know what to say. I just don't know what to say.
Well,
then don't say anything at all.
Yes.
So
at least you don't lie and tell them it's good. That's number 9.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
There's patriotism and lying is what he kind of lands the article on, the plane of the article, I guess.
Patriotism is a good one. So is lying, actually.
So we kind of talked about, I guess patriotism kind of goes hand in hand with the guns conversation we were going with last week, right? I mean, it's a part of it. People want to become a patriot.
The people who are patriots typically want guns, yes, but I don't think that patriotism means you're for gun. I mean, yeah.
I think that. I mean, he makes a pretty good point. People are putting their
country before God,
their country before God, rather than God before country.
Because God is, God bless America.
Which creates some major issues.
God bless America.
Right.
God
because what it does is
America.
it creates a Jesus in your own image. It creates that's where you get Republican gun-toting Jesus. And that's also
or you
where
have to be a Christian. If you're a Christian, you better be Republican.
Right, and that's also where you get liberal, tattooed, beer swilling Jesus as well. So.
I like that one more, though, just for the record.
I hang out with him all the time.
I mean, he's just so cool.
Jesus likes Pabst Blue Ribbon just like me. It's like I don't like Pabst Blue Ribbon because I'm black, by the way.
Do you mean, because I'm beer ignorant, do you mean I don't like Pabst Blue Ribbon because I'm black? Or do you mean, like, there's two ways to take that. You know what I mean? It's like, do you like Pabst Blue Ribbon?
I am not a white, entitled,
beard
wearing hipster.
You're saying
you don't like it because you're not a hipster. Because
you're black, you don't like Pabst Blue Ribbon. It might be different if you weren't. See, you can say, because if you said, I don't like it because I'm black, I like. Right. You see what I'm saying? Like, I don't like Pabst Blue Ribbon because I'm black.
Like way too many times.
Because I like Schlitz malt liquor. Is that okay?
Okay,
no,
wait a second.
This is all getting cut
back. I'm having to take back my compliment, my flattery. You know?
I'm not racist, but
because you used like way too many times right there.
Like Jen.
Like.
Okay, so either way, patriotism, interesting. Lying.
I like this sentence there, though. You're a citizen. You're not a citizen here. You're a citizen in heaven. I think that's interesting.
I think you're a citizen of both.
You're a dual citizen, last I checked, but yes.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with being patriotic. I mean, obviously, if the patriotism is more important to you than your citizenship in the heavenly kingdom, that's a problem. But I think you can be part of groups that you love here on earth too.
Agreed.
Yeah, absolutely. But the big one he has at the end is lying, which.
Woo!
Don't lie.
We all lie.
I'm trying to get on board with what he was saying here, and I don't think that he's wrong.
Right.
He says lying is so socially acceptable, even in Christian circles, that it often goes undetected. We're desensitized to it. And here's why this is dangerous for Christians. There's a rarely discussed passage in Matthew 5:33-37. Pardon me for having to read this whole thing. But he says, where Jesus confronts the Pharisees about oaths. Most Christians only hear the word oath when a celebrity lies in court under oath. But Jesus isn't talking about oaths in this passage. He's talking about integrity. And so I don't know that he ever actually addresses
lying.
I don't think he actually addresses lying.
He pretty much says you shouldn't have to add to your word. Is pretty much what he says. If your word is your word, let your word be your word. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. But he doesn't really address the lying. And I do think we lie in the church to save people's feelings and.
But he's talking about a personal level, so I don't think this is a church. I mean, maybe if you're talking about people gathering, a bunch of personalities, individual personalities gathering together, and we're all doing the same thing, okay, then that's one thing. But I don't think the church ever says it's okay to lie. But here he says, you make yourself sound better. You lie to stay out of trouble. You lie to get ahead. Sometimes you lie just to lie. Okay, that might be true. There are some people I know who, I guess I have to accept them at their word, that they are people of integrity, that they strive to say what is true and just.
That doesn't mean they don't lie.
In this world. And it doesn't mean they don't. But I don't think the church has ever said we're okay with this or ever tacitly been okay with lying. I don't see that.
Yeah, I agree.
So I don't think this one necessarily should have made the list.
Right. I think that there are those white lies that we do accept. Like he talks about gluttony. Like nobody is talking about that, which he says by essentially omitting that you're lying. Okay, all right, maybe I can give him that one. But, I mean, what are you supposed to go up to somebody and, like, ridicule them? And that's not okay either. To talk about them about the sin of gluttony is very different than being, I don't know, just being a monstrous person towards them as well.
Jen's drinking vodka.
Shut up.
Jen's losing her way.
No, shut up. My point is, you're going to edit that. You better.
I know. I already figured out where I'm ending the conversation.
Okay.
But Jen thinks she's super funny right now.
I'm just saying that to call somebody, hey, you're a gluttonous and a fat cow is very different than saying, you know what? Excuse me.
I'm sorry.
Who also had a drink? If you're okay, you're gonna pick the stone out of mine and the plank out of yours.
I didn't mean to do that. I'm gonna get in so much trouble.
Remember the watch, Jen. Remember the watch.
Okay, I really had a point here. Am I not wrong?
No. I already figured out the edit point. So, and then you were struggling for words. I was like, it's okay. I'm already gonna cut that. So it's fine. You're not wrong. You're right.
Like calling somebody, getting. Now you've just thrown me off.
I'm sorry.
But like, I mean, being a nasty person and just calling somebody out just to do it is very different. It's very different.
I'm so bad.
I'm
so sorry.
Jen, I heard you, and you are right.
I heard you too. Absolutely.
You just laughed at her.
I did, and that's not what I meant to do.
You need
So
to give her some hugs.
Do you forgive me? I'm sorry.
Of course.
Okay. We're definitely going to have a conversation about this afterwards. I'm in trouble. So I'll let you guys go. You guys can laugh at my plight now.
Your night's going to go great. So.
Chug.
Enjoy.
God, you guys all.
Bye.
All right, bye.
All right, bye.